how did Britain manage to create a global language, racism, and the biggest empire in history? In this video, we'll talk about the Windrush scandal, how English became a global language today, going from 1.4 million speakers to 1.4 billion speakers, how the British Empire created racism, and how the UK became a melting pot for different cultures.
When Portugal and Spain started colonization, other European countries got jealous. England, France, and Netherlands all began following in their footsteps to colonize the world.
1607 marks the start of the Triangle Trade. English ships would travel to Africa and fill their ships to the rim with slaves, before setting out on the long journey to America. Afterwards, they would fill their ships with goods such as sugar, tobacco, and crops, and head back to Europe to sell the goods before doing it all again. This generated a lot of wealth for the British Empire, helping them gain more soldiers, which made them even richer and more powerful. With the start of the Industrial Revolution, Britain started making steamships. The British Empire peaked in 1921, having control over 26% of the entire world, ruling over 500 million people, and is the largest empire in history.
The Windrush scandal is a political scandal that occurred in the UK after World War II. Britain was in shambles, thousands of buildings were bombed and destroyed. Many people living in territories under the British rule were made to come to the UK to help rebuild the country, most commonly people from India, Pakistan and the Caribbean. One of the first ships leaving from the Caribbean with workers was called the Empire Windrush. Many of those who left their homes to contribute to help the rebuilding the UK did not take their paperwork with them, as it wasn't needed to enter the country. Most people settled down. After a few years, their homelands became independent countries. British people were not pleased of the new arrivals from all over the world, and many immigration experienced discrimination and racism.
In 2012, the UK introduced a new deportation law. Many immigrants who didn't have any paperwork were detained. Over 83 different instances of this occurred. Even if they weren't detained because of the lack of paperwork, many still didn't have access to free healthcare provided by the government and were unable to get jobs and suitable housing. In August 2018, the British government came out with a public apology to those who were made to leave the country and were promised help to return. In April 2019, after a lot of pressure from the public and the victims, the government agreed to compensate those who were wrongly convicted, agreeing to pay 200 million British pounds. But many of the victims didn't have any paperwork to prove they were entitled to the compensation. To conclude, the UK went from a moderate country with only a population of 4.5 million people, being an extremely Christian country with no people of color, to being one of the most powerful countries in the world with a population of 72.5 million people, becoming a multi-religious hotspot with now only 6% of the country identifying as Christian. Nowadays, 1.4 billion people speak English worldwide, most notably in Australia, India, Canada, USA and Ireland. The British Empire is also a big reason that African, Asian and Latin American people are being discriminated against.